MTA losses between the extra cleaning and the loss of fares, tolls, and dedicated taxes, and also real estate taxes are taking a humongous toll. We could be between 14 and 16 billion dollars in the hole by 2024, and because of that horrific possibility, the chairman has told everybody that everything is on the table now. Obviously, they're going to continue with transformation. Mr. McCord is now free to cut people, which he is going to start to do and report likely in September, although there will be, unlike ever before, an August board meeting because it's that serious. So the chairman has scheduled the board meeting for August. The board is anxious to talk about the various actions that can be taken, all shy of massive fare hikes and massive service cuts, which pretty much everybody feels are just not tenable and will drive. In fact, I saw somebody interviewed yesterday on the news who said, if any of these things happen, her words were, see ya. Not only would she not ride the system anymore, she'd likely move out of New York. And if people keep hearing that, you see why it's so important that we get funding for this transit system. I raised the issue, and Commissioner David Mack raised the issue of taking care of ourselves if everyone else won't with a gasoline tax. He was in support of it. He mentioned good things happened in New Jersey as a result of that. I keep stating that gasoline varies by week to week, by gas station to gas station, depending on how much you're talking about. It wouldn't be felt, but massive fare hikes and massive service cuts would indeed be felt and would affect every county in this region. Plus, if everybody decides to drive, that means really nobody can drive because the congestion and the air quality would be so ridiculous that people would say, I'm done with this, I'm moving. So for a host of reasons, and Lisa will talk a little bit more about it later, we are joining other advocacy groups. We are doing letter, tweeting, and everything to elected officials, excuse me, to let them know that this isn't a New York issue. This isn't even a Northeast issue. This is a national issue. The Chicago Transit Authority, BART in San Francisco, Metro Rail in Miami, WMATA in Washington, SEPTA in Philly, MBTA in Boston, LA Metro, everybody is suffering from this. And if these transit systems don't come back and with it bring the economic vitality that all those cities bring with them, this country is finished. So this isn't a red or blue issue. This is a people issue. And I hope Mitch McConnell sees that. Special efforts, the chairman mentioned, are being to reach out between our top elected officials and the leadership of the Senate and the House in order to get these points across. But 14 to 16 billion is a humongous amount. Some are now predicting we won't have our normal ridership back until 2023 at the earliest, likely 2024. There was some good news yesterday on the vaccine front. We could likely have one by the end of the year. 2 companies are vying to get it out. There's a fortune to be made in whoever gets it out. So, you know, I'm hopeful that things can turn around much sooner than that, but we can't take anything for granted, obviously. The capital program, the majority of it is on hold. Jano made it clear that this is nothing that any of these things are anything that anyone at the MTA would like to do. Various things will move forward. The Rutgers Tube job will commence in August with construction to begin in September. That will run for about 9 to 10 months. It will only be nights and weekends. So obviously F trains will be rerouted to the Cranberry Tube, to the A and C line tubes. We're very fortunate that the builders of our system saw fit to have the 6th and 8th Avenue lines interchangeable between J Street and West 4th Street. So this is a simple thing, much as when we did the Cranberry Tube and the A's and the C's ran through the Rutgers Tube, we will reverse that. Yes, it will be the tube light version of repairs versus the way the Joralemon, Montague, and Clark Street tubes were done, which was the real heavy-duty job. This will be done like the Canarsie tube, where you put the cabling on racks, you just repair what needs to be repaired. Nobody believes this will last as long, but it is what we are going to do for Rutgers. Tom Quigley, the the general counsel for the MTA announced, as he had in our board briefing and had been announced in May, that the new debarment regulations are now the vote was taken yesterday, and they are now in effect. They are much more well, they are, what's the best word for this? They are so much better than the old ones. They allow for more bidders, less automatic penalties. Penalties are left to the discretion of various project managers and the MTA board. This will encourage more bidders on projects, which should bring prices down. The contracting community was all on board for this. When they put this out for a 30-day notice to the public, I think only 3 or 4 people commented. That's how how much people are in favor of these new debarment regulations. So that's good. There are also new all-agency procurement guidelines. This should also encourage more bidders on projects. People will be deciding who gets which bids based on pricing, speed of delivery, track record, a whole host of things now. And each project manager will sound off on who should get awarded these procurements. There is a movement in order to save money to lessen our reliance on all kinds of what's the word I'm looking for? Consultants. The consultant explosion of recent years will now really slow down. Everybody is looking where they can move without consultants. That was obviously an expense that people are feeling that can be dealt with in another way, and we don't have to incur these additional charges. So that's another thing that is being cut. They are also looking to cut headcount in various places. There may be wage freezes. Depending on what happens with the feds, there could be layoffs. There could be all kinds of economies instituted. We will probably, due to the now August board meeting that has been set up, we will learn a lot more. There will be no vote on any of these financial matters until the December board meeting, which is the normal time that you vote on the financial plan. People have asked the chairman about fare hikes scheduled for next year. There is no doubt in my mind that those will go ahead, although some board members are saying there should be no fare hikes at this point. We need to encourage people to come back to the system. I noticed a reporter asked the chairman yesterday, what about a COVID-related fare hike? He did not rule it out. He had previously ruled out any additional fare hikes due to COVID-19, but he was very careful to not rule that out because, quote, everything is on the table now. And this table is getting really, really heavy. It could collapse on its own accord with so many things on the table.
Andrew,
layoffs. Yes.
Can I just ask a question
really
Bradley.
Quick? Now
Sorry.
Hello,
yeah, I'm
Bradley.
here. Hi. When you say COVID-related fare hikes, does that mean that after the crisis is over, that the fares would go back to what they were before that COVID-related?
I think COVID-related fare hike meant an extra higher fare hike than what was originally scheduled.
I see. Okay.
That's right. There would be an additional fare hike to at least close the gap.
Wow. Okay.
That's caused by
which would certainly drive riders away.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And both Commissioner Schwartz and Commissioner Law spoke against fare hikes yesterday. There was some.
I just wanted to say something about the reduction in consultants. A reduction in consultants at the same time that there's a hiring freeze and a reduction in staff is going to mean that less work can be done. So, I mean, that's the downside of.
That's a downside, but some work is continuing to get done, including, and these are a couple of good station ADA fixes, or I should say renovations. The massive complex at 149th Street Grand Concourse for the 2, 4, and 5 lines is going to be made accessible. That station, for anyone that knows it, has a host of different platforms, different levels, so that and it's near Hostos Community College, Borough Hall. It's just an important station, big transfer point, and that is going to be made ADA accessible, as are the Tremont Avenue and Grand Concourse on the B and D. and an immediate speed up of the 59th Street 4th Avenue station on the D, N, and R lines. So that's some good news in this sea of bad news.
N and R train. There's no D at 59th and 4th Avenue.
I meant N and R. Yes, of course. The D is branched off. But nevertheless, an important transfer point.
Andrew?
Yes. Edith.
What's happening with the elevator stations that are currently promised?
Well, Astoria is
that
going
are
ahead.
Okay.
But I think only 11 out of 60 or 70 some odd are actually going ahead. I am still waiting to get that definitive list. That is one of the follow-ups from the last meeting, and I have a host of follow-ups from the last meeting to report on, but that is one of the things I am still waiting on.
Because for example, 181st on the A doesn't appear on anyone's list because it's the old money.
Yes.
And there are a number of them in Washington Heights that are like 168, which is promised to become accessible.
Right, and these are all very deep stations.
So what he said that they're stymied on the 70 stations.
Well, these actually are in the 70.
Right. So they should
These
be
are
going forward.
Intermittent.
I will find out about those Washington Heights stations for you for sure.
Thank you.
Andrew Shaul has his hand up.
And he just put in the chat that 168th is in the group of 70.
Okay.
One thing I just wanted to say about consultants, yesterday I took a cursory look through the whole financial plan, and I saw that in the capital construction development section that they noted because of the hiring freeze that is going to require to focus more on consultants.
You can't have it both ways, can you?
Yep.
Either they're going to slow down the hiring of consultants or they're going to rely on consultants. But yesterday's language was clear. They are not going to hire anywhere near as many as they had planned.
Right. Christopher also has his hand up.
Yeah,
Well, then he should put it down and speak. And there's Deborah Grice.
No, this is the correct way to do it, is raising your hand and then speaking after you're called on.
Well, of course,
Go ahead,
I was being facetious.
thank you.
Oh, no.
Andrew, there are two things. One thing that, before I continue, my main question is, we forgot to approve the agenda and the minutes.
I was doing this until I was positive we had a quorum, but if we do have a quorum, I'm happy to do that.
Yes, we
All
do.
in favor of today's agenda, can you say aye?
Aye.
Great. The minutes, any corrections or additions? Hearing none, may we have an approval of the minutes as submitted?
So moved.
So moved.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right. Andy Pollock had a question as well. Go ahead.
Chris, were you finished?
No, I just want to get that off the chest area. But the main question that I like to agree with Edith, because some of the stations they mentioned about accessibility that I was watching the board yesterday, and I was, as I said to you earlier, we caught that mistake. We definitely heard that there was an issue with 59th Street and 4th Avenue because they have to put additional money, and the construction has to be done by October. But the concern is with all this coronaviruses and with the capital, I think there might be a delay on this for all the lists of stations that's supposed to be getting elevators.
59th and 4th Avenue is being accelerated, Chris.
Yes, and I said there is some, but they did say if it doesn't get done by October, there may be an issue. No, but he did say that last day in the board.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Now, can anybody hear me now? Sorry about that. My internet. Okay, my internet disconnected. I do apologize. So I remember specifically last year in December that Chief Financial Officer Robert Ferrand said that no matter what happened, fare hikes were regularly scheduled. And I know this for a fact that you always have to discuss fare hikes in December, a year before fare hikes are supposed to start. And I understand that everybody is I guess the right word I want to use is antsy. And I can understand why the chairman of the finance committee, Larry Schwartz, doesn't want a fare hike. I completely agree with him on that. And the right time and the right place to discuss any fare hike, and I don't want to give a specific number because right now the board hasn't come up with it, would have to be by the end of the fourth quarter. And I do expect to have those conversations with the board and Commissioner Schwartz by year's end.
Yeah, Andy, what we normally do is we discuss in November's meetings the issue of the fare hike, and if it looks like all systems are go, they schedule public hearings. I don't know if that will be happening this year due to the COVID or what state we'll be in, but I seem to recall the wonderful holiday decorations on Staten Island, as I always made my way in December to the College of Staten Island for their fare hike hearings. So I know that December is the month that we frequently went to those hearings, and then the vote was taken, you know, after the hearings.
And normally in Queens, we have our hearings at York College in Jamaica. So I don't think, well, I'm not thinking about that now. All I'm just trying to say is I understand that, again, everything's on the table. You have everything in a file cabinet. I understand that right now. But with the circumstances right now, we could be facing a worse MTA that we've never had imagined to see in our lifetimes.
Yes. Yes, you probably heard the Riders Alliance talking about abandoning entire subway lines. I don't believe that can possibly happen. I think a lot of things would have to take place before anybody would consider such a dire thing.
All I'm going to say regarding the Riders Alliance.
I will be right back. Keep talking.
All I'm just going to say regarding that is that's up to the board. Whatever they decide, that's all going to be up to them. So we haven't heard anything from any MTA official. So I personally would not believe that Riders Alliance report until the board or Chairman Foy specifically, or let's say Bob Ferran in that example, would say, we're going to cut this line, we're going to cut that line. So I don't believe.
Andy, it's the report is meant to illustrate what could potentially happen if federal funding doesn't come through. It's, you know, that's a major issue. RPA did a report like that. You know, everybody's trying to highlight the two doomsday scenarios of what could be if this federal funding doesn't happen to spur action. So that, you know, this is, for us, this is kind of inside baseball, but for a lot of the general public, if they hear the alarm being sounded, they're much more likely to reach out to their elected officials and let them know about the importance of the funding.
And I'll have to say one last thing. Bob Ferran's report yesterday, he mentioned that we could see more federal funding coming in 2021. So it's not just this time around that we're asking the federal government for help. We could be asking the feds for help going into the first or second quarter of next year.
Yeah, and we have to. We actually have to.
That would be what happens depend a lot on what happens in November.
But the election, yes, because we don't even know what happens.
There are certain outstanding issues that have been raised with Washington over the years, not the least of which is New York has 40% of all riders nationwide, but gets 16% of the federal transit funding. That is so out of whack as to be criminal.
Stuart has his hand raised, or is that Matt? Matt has his hand raised.
What, you can't tell the difference?
Matt, did you have something you wanted to say, or were you?
Yes, I was going to ask, in Andrew's report, does he have anything in there about how we're doing with the overnight station cleaning?
We're doing actually very well. I've asked both Sally, and it's really sad to say that tomorrow is Sally's last day at MTA. She was out giving out masks this morning, I was told. But she has been really terrific. But I have asked her, and I've asked Sarah Feinberg, and others about the cleaning, and we have learned an awful lot from the overnight shutdowns, some of which will be really instructional in how we clean the system when we return to 24/7 service, which will happen. Both the governor and the chairman are on record as saying when the pandemic is over, and the chairman takes additional pains to say, when the governor says it's safe, we will be returning. You will still see much cleaner stations and train cars as a result of what we have learned during this. And one of the advantages is that many of the homeless population, which were causing a lot of the debris and other matter in the cars, many of them seem to have accepted help now that the system has shut down and they have been forced to vacate. And some of them are finding housing and health services and what have you. And it would be great if we could find housing for everybody, because living in the system is not good. There's rail dust, there's all kinds of other incidental things. You do not want to have people living in the system.
Okay, good.
We've also called for study and metrics as we continue to call for understanding the plan for reopening and a study in the metrics, still waiting to hear back on how long it takes to remove individuals from the system at the end of line, how long it takes to clean. And as Sarah Feinberg reported yesterday, there's an uptick in ridership between the 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. hours. And from what we understand from people who ride during that time, there are people waiting online to get into stations at 5 a.m. Because they need to get to work. So the 4 to 5 a.m. hour is really critical to look at as a beginning on how to get folks back, on how to get the service back. And you've got a question from Edith and Deborah Greif.
Okay, let's have them.
Okay, sorry. My concern is, funny, but 10 years ago, we were all certain the MTA would not take out bus lines. And those lines are still gone. Just a reminder.
Yep.
And that's really, even more detrimental with trains being out at night.
Yeah, and what's even more detrimental is the prospect of losing entire subway lines, as some people have mentioned. That is a non-starter in my book.
Well, for people who can't ride the subway, losing bus lines were also.
Right. And I'm happy to say that having lived through the June 27th of 2010 worst service cuts in the city's history, I would say 99% of those, albeit with some different routing in the case of the Little Neck Parkway bus, all have been restored. There was one on Staten Island where nurses could not get to nursing homes. That's how stupid some of those service cuts were. So yes, bus lines are easily removed and easily.
You can't get to Brooklyn from Manhattan.
Oh, and by the way,
going through basically Staten Island.
Well,
Queens,
I'm glad you brought that up, because in case people don't know, there is a brand new express bus known as the B99, which goes from the Midwood section of Brooklyn all the way to Columbus Circle. While this hardly makes up for the loss of the subway, it is certainly convenient. Many folks were asking about a bus from downtown Brooklyn to lower Manhattan over the course of several meetings, and not having to go to Williamsburg to get a bus into Manhattan. Now you will not have to do that. The B99 will serve downtown Brooklyn and lower Manhattan.
For people who just want to cross the river.
Yep.
That still remains a problem.
There are buses from Queens to Manhattan and Brooklyn to Manhattan.
If you are on Smith Street and you're trying to get to City Hall,
yep,
it's pretty stupid to have to go all the way to God's country, Queens, to come back downtown to get to City Hall.
What time of the day are you talking about?
I've done it at about 11 o'clock. I had to go all the way into Queens, and then come back across, I think, 59th Street.
So you had to go up to take the 32?
Yes.
What about
Yeah.
the 39 over the Williamsburg Bridge?
Didn't work out for whatever reason. I mean, it was
Very rarely.
yeah.
It's
Okay.
not very frequent.
Yeah. I mean, I hear that constantly from like Anthony Trocchia. You know, it's like easier to wheel, you know, across the Williamsburg Bridge than it is to wait for the bus.
Wow.
I'm just trying to point out that, you know, let's not close our eyes to bus issues. There are
Not
a
at
lot
all.
of people who still won't use a train. Buses are getting a little too crowded for wheelchair users, and it's a problem.
Well, Edith,
you know,
to that end, in August, when front door boarding of buses begins again, the wheelchair position will be once again available. Drivers will be protected by these new vinyl and plexiglass barriers, and there'll be another 7 seats basically on buses, including the wheelchair position. So that's at least some good news. The bad news is that you'd have to pay again. I wanted to address some issues that were raised at the, wait, is there any other questions?
Deborah had a question. Hold
Sure.
on.
Okay, when we lost the buses, I wrote this big report, and I will tell you, they did not restore certain bus lines in Brooklyn. One was the former B71 that would connect the Red Hook section to Grand Army Plaza. That was never restored at all, and that is a problem because
That was the Union Street bus, yes?
but the grade.
That's the one that's raised
Everybody
by,
wants that back.
But you know
that's
what?
the one Assemblyman Ortiz's office is calling
Yep,
for.
everybody wants that bus back. That is the biggest non-return of an important service that I've seen.
Yeah, well, that's because also if you have a disability, you try when you're going to Unions to go to Grand Army Plaza, you have to go up a hill and it's steep.
Yep.
The other issue is before you cut in 2010, the B39 bus ran much better. Why? I knew of that bus since I was an infant being born. Why? My mother grew up in Williamsburg, and that was everybody relied on it, and you would have 2 or 3 per hour taking people back and forth. They didn't really restore it correctly because it's only one bus to go. Now, one other issue, you know, when they cut, and then there was no bus going over any bridge, they said, well, you can go up to Queens. Well, yeah, I knew that, but the problem you don't realize is when there's a traffic jam because there's an issue with the Queens Midtown Tunnel and the Queensboro Bridge, now known as Edcotch, the buses get stuck completely, and you can't get, if you're on the bus, you're stuck. So that was one issue. Also, when they changed a few of the bus lines in my end of Brooklyn, I'm glad they restored the B4 to its original correct route. Also, the B80, the B64, I'm really glad they let it go back down to Coney Island still, because they don't realize that there's a certain area over there in Brooklyn that you don't see because it's very dark and isolated, but people live there between Cropsey and Stillwell Avenue. There's a lot of apartment buildings and homes. So I want them to, if you're going to, and understand about the budget, but before you make cuts, you need to check also the safety. Is it safe? Because we had waitresses who used to work at the diner on Stillwell. They were screwed up badly, really bad. They were scared for their life. In fact, they used to tell that they were willing to even work another shift more for the safety issue because they were scared to walk because there's not enough lighting there. So before we make cuts, I really want them to really look at the geographical, the safety issue before, because that's not saving money if somebody gets hurt or sues the MTA for what has happened.
It's good that you bring that up, Deborah, because in the Bronx bus hearing, when they were talking about revamping some of the routes, many people brought up the issue of the incredible hills that would be involved if they rerouted a certain bus, and they heeded that advice, and they did not make people walk this really steep hill to get their bus.
And yes, I know about those buses too, because two of my aunts, when I was growing up, lived in the Bronx, and especially in the hilly part. Very rough, very
Yes.
rough. My late mother
Very
would have
hilly. Bronx and Washington Heights, very hilly.
and they would visit their aunt my aunts would visit their aunt in Washington. And they have to use buses because of my mother's disabilities, just to get up to the hills. So I hope safety is considered is just as important. And
you are asking the same question that Sir Laurence Olivier kept asking in the movie Marathon Man. Is it safe?
Yes, I will do that. I will be the female version. Sir, I'll be Lady Olivier.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yes. Am I allowed to ask a question?
Why not?
Well, because I'm not on the board.
Fine with me.
So relating to the express bus, you know, Park Slope does not have an express bus to the city. And the seniors in Park Slope have been taking car service to get to doctor appointments, and it's costing $100 round trip in the car service. So my question is, I didn't know about this Midwood Express bus. Can it stop in Park Slope?
I'm sorry, just let me interrupt you for a second. When you say that people are going to doctor's appointments, you're not talking between 1 and 5 a.m., are you?
No.
Oh, well then, otherwise the subways and regular buses are running.
There is no bus from Park Slope to Manhattan.
But there's frequent subway service.
Well,
There's
we
no
don't have an
accessibility.
elevator. And we have 70 steps at the subway station.
Okay.
And they don't feel safe on the subway. So they're taking car service. So my question is, will there ever be something like a voucher where they could get a transit voucher for taking car service? Or is there a way for an express bus to make a stop in Park Slope so they could at least get to some central point in Manhattan and get an inexpensive via cab ride from there or something?
I don't have the answer to that. I doubt that they're going to start express bus service from Park Slope, considering there's so many subway lines serving Park Slope. And they would love to get people back on the main system because we need those fares desperately. The only time they gave people the ability to use for-hire vehicles was if between the 1 and 5 a.m. Time frame, if you had more than two transfers that you'd have to make.
Okay, this is not that, but without an elevator, and they are concerned about the safety issue of traveling on the subway. And so they've been taking car service. But I mean, how come Midwood suddenly got an express bus when we asked for one back in 2014 and we were told no? So why can't we have an express bus? Why can't we have a couple of times a day jitney to take people to Manhattan? Why can't the Midwood bus make a stop in Park Slope?
That Midwood bus is only between the hours of 1 and 5 a.m.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't realize
To make
that.
up for the loss of the subway then.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So the answer is no, anyway.
I'll
I'll tell everybody
pretty
the
clear
answer
that it is right
no.
now, yes.
So now we know. Thank you.
Much less with the fiscal crisis. But let me report on some follow-ups from the last meeting that were asked. We will hear, I am hopeful, from our speaker today, John Santamaria, on the issue of the R-179s as much as he is allowed to speak. But one of the questions was, when will the panel, or when was the panel of experts to oversee the review of that car class convened? We have never at the board gotten notice of when that has happened, but perhaps Mr. Santamaria will be telling us that. There was an issue about crowding in elevators. Apparently, there are weight capacity limits, but not occupancy limits for elevators. But both Sarah Meyer and Connie DePalma's office are looking into special kinds of signage that they can put on the outside of elevators, advising of distancing. On the restoration, Jason Anthony asked us of reverse peak S90 limited service due to the incredible crowding of bus passengers on his route to and from Amazon. At this time, there are no plans to restore the reverse peak S90 limited service, but I did hear from Craig Cipriano. They have been in talks with Amazon in order of ways to mitigate this problem, whether that means changing hours for some, or a car service, or something to get them to a different bus route. I am not clear about yet, but Amazon is definitely looking into the overcrowding problem on the buses that serve their huge facility in Western Staten Island. On the question of how many people are utilizing the essential service overnight, approximately 17.5 thousand trips are being made between the hours of 1 and 5. Pre-COVID, there were something like 8,000. So clearly, the loss of the subway is putting people on this essential service overnight.
Andrew, that's 17,500 a night?
Yeah.
Do we have a breakdown? Is that every night? And can we get a breakdown of by hour?
I can ask by hour. That was for the entire period.
Okay, and the for-hire and the cost, because the for-hire vehicles are something like $65, $100 a trip. So does it actually make sense to do that? Are there other more cost-effective ways that essential connector can be managed?
I can ask those questions, sure.
Yeah. Knowing, and I would also say, reinforcing the point that this information should be readily available and transparent, not just for the essential connector, but for the subway, for all time of day travel should be available.
And I'm not really sure if the 17,500 is solely on the bus service or also on the for-hire vehicles that some people have been relegated to because there's too many changes they would have to make. I will get all of those facts. On the issue of drivers at the Jackie Gleason, East New York, and Fresh Pond garages being notified about who is allowed to board through front doors, Craig has told me that all of the depots have been notified of this, and when complaints come in, they are doing the necessary restructuring of people to allow this to be done in the proper manner. So everybody has been notified about it, and if somebody is not complying, they are being reassigned, apparently, if they're not adhering to the guidelines, which is of course going to change in August when front door boarding, and of course at the end of the year when Omni is everywhere, all door boarding will commence, and then it's likely to not be an issue at all, especially since the time-based fares will be available on Omni at the end of the year. As far as Scott had and somebody else had asked about whether the plainclothes sex offender unit is still in operation on the subways. There are plainclothes units in each district to address sex crimes in the system. The Staten Island Railway is policed by the MTA Police Department, and buses are policed by whatever local precinct the bus happens to be in. But so the plainclothes units have not been disbanded on the MTA system as they have been in the NYPD. And those are the issues that I was asked to look into. So that's pretty much it for my report. Lisa, did you want to talk briefly about the endeavoring with the other groups that we're doing to get the word out to elected officials about the importance of federal assistance for not only MTA, but all transit systems nationwide?
Absolutely, thank you. As Andrew said, we have been working, Ellen and I have been on calls very regularly with transit agencies, both locally and nationally, about ways to support the HEROES Act, and or at least in particular the transit funding aspects therein. As Andrew said, the MTA needs $3.9 billion through the end of this calendar year, and a total of $10.3 billion through, total of $10.3 billion.
Matt, can you mute your phone, please? Because you're coming through.
I did.
Okay.
And I know Edith has her hand up.
Okay.
And,
It's not showing. That's why I'm asking.
okay. So
It's on Bradley.
And so the MTA needs $3.9 billion through the end of this year, which is part of a total of $10.3 billion through the end of next year. There was a press conference that was held earlier this month with a number of large transit providers across the nation in both red and blue states, impressing upon elected officials the importance of passage of the HEROES Act. So we right now it looks as though Senate Republicans and the leadership, or the Senate Republicans in the White House, have come to an agreement, but there's not really agreement with amongst all of the senators about what would be included in the bill. Part of the outreach, a big part of the outreach that we're doing is not just to the Senate, because certainly those in our region are very on board with providing additional funding for transit, and Kirsten Gillibrand, and there were 20 or 24 other senators from around the United States who wrote in support of the legislation and funding transit. We're also working to focus on members of House of Representatives to ensure to bolster their support. Now, all right, so by and large, everybody in the New York City and New York metro area is on board with this. So why are we doing that? Every time there is another letter, another group, another statement, another outreach to elected officials, it gives them an opportunity to speak on the floor and to talk about the support, the bipartisan, bilateral support that's happening for the HEROES Act and for transit funding. So one of the things, that we're also, continuing to write op-eds and speak out. Today's a digital day of action in which we'll be participating. One of the other ways that we're engaged is signing on to letters that are going to these elected leaders. And what we're pulling out is letters that individuals, if any of you are interested in sharing them with your members of Congress or senators, the more they get, the more they can talk about it, the more support there is. So we're happy to share those letters once we parse out which are the, what's what, because there are about 6 or 8 letters that are in play right now, I would say, right, Ellen? That's really all, that's really at the local and national levels. So, we've been very active. We're going to continue to be active. Ellen, did you want to add anything?
Lisa, do you know if APTA is involved in this effort?
APTA is involved. APTA is asking for a smaller number. They've not reconfigured their number based on need. So the transit agencies are asking for a little bit of a higher reconfigured number. But yes, APTA is involved. The unions are involved. Yesterday there was I guess a digital day of action for unions nationally in support of the HEROES Act, because the HEROES Act not only supports transit, supports hazard pay for frontline workers, and it also includes funding as written for cities and states, municipalities and states, and that's important as well because of funding. Both the city and the state in New York have indicated or have agreed to contribute $3 billion each to the MTA capital program, but are not in a position to do that if they don't have it.
Lisa, this is Trudy. Can I just add to what you're saying, please? Hello?
Go ahead.
Hi, absolutely, Trudy.
Okay. The important thing for everybody who is on this call and everybody who knows anybody in other jurisdictions other than New York, our congressional delegation, our 2 senators, all of our elected officials are on board, whether they're Republican, Democrat, or anything in between. The important thing is for us as New Yorkers, and which is what our electeds are doing, to contact people from other states. If you know someone in Kentucky who can then contact Mitch McDonald directly. If you know someone in Texas who can contact Ted Cruz directly, I can go on with, who we have to get on board. That is the key thing. So I would ask that everybody who knows anybody other than New York or New Jersey or Connecticut or California, the states that are on board, for us to contact or to contact your elected officials, asking them to contact their peers in other states, because that's who we have to get on board, not our guys, our congressional delegation, our two senators, and the same with New Jersey and Connecticut especially, also Rhode Island. I can name the whole coalition that Governor Cuomo put together. They're on board. It's the other ones that we have to get to vote for us and for what we need. And if you know people, any of the transit systems in those states, get to them also, which is something I've been doing, and I think, Andrew, you've been doing that too, and
Yeah,
others.
because I'm in another organization. We know these people.
Exactly. Yeah. And in getting them to contact their elected officials who are not from the good guys right now. Okay? That's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Good point, Trudy. Thank you.
Thanks, Trudy. And we
Could I
can
add
also
something?
share, Edith, and we're right there. We can also share with you a list that Senator Schumer shared with us of those that are the elected
Unless
senators.
anybody thinks this is a blue state issue, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Miami, Dallas, Houston, and Albuquerque all are hurting. Their transit systems are hurting, and those are red states. So
And they've all
let's get
signed
real.
on
This
to
is
the
a
joint.
people issue.
Right, they've all signed on to the joint letter. Edith, please, go ahead.
Thank you. I was actually trying to get on the end of Andrews but my hand is not working.
Oh.
It keeps sliding up on other people. I like to facilitate. I'd like to come back to the issue of driver and driver training, which number of times the driver has allowed people to load from the back who then come through the shower curtain and sit in the front of the bus. Now, with social distancing, you can have 4 people sitting up there, and the driver goes, well, I tried to save you a seat, closes the door, and drives away. I'm getting a little tired of being left on the sidewalk repeatedly. Now, these are people who are sitting there who don't qualify really to sit there, but they're there and they're sitting. And the drivers need to act upon it. I would like to think that it's not necessarily passive aggressiveness, but it damn sure looks like it.
So these passengers are pushing aside the curtain that was put up there to protect the operator.
They're not. The driver is not opening the front door.
Right.
When they stop, and you're sitting there in a wheelchair in front of the door. The driver does not open the door, allows people to load from the back. They come through the shower curtain. They sit their little butts down, and then there's no space for the person with the mobility equipment.
And there's 2 things wrong with that picture.
In the shower curtain area.
Excuse me?
Why are the drivers letting people sit in the closed off area?
Because seniors and people who have disabilities, maybe, who have mobility issues, can go in to the front of the bus.
Right.
But
that's what you meant for others.
Through the front door. Yes, they are priority, but they're not wheelchair priority. It's like walkers, crutches, etc.
And for those people, they're not opening the front door?
No, they didn't. Oh, no, they're coming in through the back door and then coming through because the back of the bus is full.
Because if you're on crutches, you're allowed through the front door.
Of course you are. That's my point. But I've also been seeing people with grocery carts coming in and drivers letting them in through the lift. It's really a mess.
Edith, have you personally witnessed this?
I'm the person left on the sidewalk.
Okay, when you witness that, if you see people going up past the shower curtain, could you please make a note of the bus number and let us know?
I have. In fact, I made a point of going over to the dispatcher at 168th Street, disturbed her lunch, and made a written complaint, and I've not heard back from the MTA.
And did you forward that to the office too?
I don't have a copy of it. I filled in her form.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Edith, if you could take a picture of it.
I've been doing some of those, yes.
Okay.
I will go through all my chip and send you what there is. Anyone in our office that I should be sending it to?
So that actually leads me to I didn't mention this last month because their papers hadn't been filed. Deborah Morrison is retiring effective July 30th. So
Yeah.
Given the hiring freeze, we're not able to hire anybody else. So Kate Contino on the phone, maybe you and I can have a conversation about how we can continue to forward those kind of complaints.
I'd be happy to, Lisa. We could do that offline though, right? We don't need to.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
we'll get back to everybody on a new process.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, you've got Christopher and Deborah both waving. Edith, are you have you finished? Okay, thank you.
Well, actually, I want Edith to stay 1 second because
she's 100%
correct.
right. Because drivers are ignoring us with mobility devices. In fact, they told me I can do what I want, and he has tried to put me in the back. I've said no. I was on the back. I only got on one bus, and he's telling me that my little cousin Ann, who's under 5 feet, can't be in the front with me. Yeah, and she's very short. She can't climb up the back. And the other time when Chris tried to help me on, and I said, no, I want you to stay with me. With plenty of, he's saying no to me. So we went off the bus because I said it loud enough for the camera to hear. Your nose and face is exposed. I think I want to get off this bus. And I'm reporting you because you're not following the safety guidelines, and you are not following the ADA regulations that have been said. You don't seem to listen to the announcement that's on your bus. So you called me a couple of names. I've been called all kinds of names by many drivers. And Edith says 100% right, but they're doing it in all boroughs. They're really disgusting.
And Andrew, just to add one thing, I know you were going to say, yes, I have put it in already, and I did.
Yes, we take pictures.
I have taken pictures and I have put it in, but it's the way they're treating even Edith or any person in a wheelchair. It's not right. And when you mentioned Jackie Gleason, I had an issue with them. When East New York, there was a wheelchair outside waiting for the SBS bus, and yes, I did put it in. Which they didn't see me doing it because I was in an area I can catch it. It's like drivers are worrying about running a race, but they're not thinking of safety, and they're not thinking of the customers trying to get on the front. But at the same time, I have seen that a couple of times too. See them sliding under the shadow curtains.
I'm sorry, Trudy, can you please mute yourself?
Your phone.
So this is a very delicate.
Trudy. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, our speaker has joined us.
Our speaker has joined us.
Matt Shotkin has a question.
The graffiti, it's a bad.
Trudy.
I turned it off.
No, you haven't. You did, but now it's back on. Okay, there you go. Thank you. All right, Matt, do you have a quick question?
I have a quick comment that Edith and Deborah are both right, that when I'm on a bus and some occasionally people walk by with a car, a dolly, or something like that. That's all that I have to really say.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So let me introduce John Santa Maria, who we're fortunate to have as our speaker today. Nobody knows New York City Transit cars like John Santa Maria. He is an expert on every car type, from the 32s, should I say to the 179s, or is that?
No, you could say it. Andrew, what do I have in my hand? What is this? I don't know if you can really see this.
Redbird.
This is one of my models. That's right. I have a whole model set. Someone told me my set's worth about $1,000. I have a whole consist. I have 5 of them, and it's a working
You know, they used to
unit.
have one of those in front of Queensborough Hall.
They still do.
Everyone,
There's
sorry
still
to interrupt.
a car there.
Lisa, this is urgent. Read this. I just got a press from the MTA. This is Pat Foy with NBC. And quote, we are going to run out of CARES Act funding tomorrow, July 24th.
You sort of froze up, Andy. Can you say that one more time?
Sorry about that, Andrew.
Andy, just send that to me, please, and I'll share it.
Yeah, Lisa, I'll email it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. I haven't gotten mine yet. All right, thank you.
I'm sorry, John.
So if you'd like, I put together a quick presentation just to at least give you guys some updates on some of the items going on. And Andrew, I won't take up too much time, and I think I could share my screen if I may, and then why don't we just take it from there, if that's okay?
Let's see, if you can share it, then you can do it. Otherwise, I'll figure out how to allow you to share it.
So whoever is the host has disabled sharing. You need to enable sharing.
That's you, Lisa.
I'm working on it. All right, try it now.
Excellent, excellent, good.
Okay.
Yep.
So let me just go through this. And I'll try not to take up too much time. And if you have any questions, please feel free.
Thanks, John.
What I'll talk about, and I won't spend a great amount of time on it, is, when Andy Byford was here, we instituted the Subway Action Plan. And I wanted to get back and just let you folks know, well, what have we seen as a result of that? I'll just quickly talk about reliability, some of the ideas that we did in seating, and what's going on with electronic signs. Then I'll just, many of you may not know we have vacuum trains. I know Andrew knows that.
Sure.
A quick briefing on that, a quick briefing on the R211. And with hope one day, I could just give you a quick assessment of the R262. So in the past year, if we look at the, how do we measure reliability, right? The mean distance between failures. Miles, basically miles divided by failures that cause interruption service. And we've increased over the last 12 months just under, it's 7.6% increase. In the month of June alone, it's a 10% increase, and those are the actual numbers. But I know Andrew likes me to use some examples, so I just picked randomly 4 lines, but I had to be fair, Andrew. I had to use 2 in the A division and 2 in the B. I know you're a B division guy, but I got to be fair. And, the R and the A, have been performing, and this has no bearing on ridership, right? The cars are running around. One thing I do see is a total increase in door performance. Why would you think that is in the last couple of months, especially in the last 3 months? The cars are going to every station. They're opening and closing doors, no different than before. So what's different?
Nobody's holding them up.
Exactly. And the door reliability has shot up so high.
They're breaking our doors.
So is that door problem an issue on the R46s? Is that what I'm getting from that chart?
No, that's a general, let me go back to that screen. No, this is overall reliability.
I'm talking about the R and the A though.
No, that's overall reliability of
Okay.
the fleet has gone up, especially on the R since from this past June all the way from February, it's been shooting up. It's very good, very good. And a lot of that has to do with what Andy Byford started prior, What else did we do? We tried some customer-friendly improvements in the cars. And now I'm going to show you some photos right behind this. We tried the idea of rush hour seating on 4 cars that were modified on the L line. We had a pilot for that. We removed some end seats on 100 cars on the E line. And then on the 42nd Street shuttle, we modified the shuttle. So let me look at those and show you. So this was what we did on the L line. These here, if you could see me moving the mouse, these were fold-up, lockable benches. And we had a handful of these, and we just tried them as a pilot to see if it would benefit the passengers. And I'll be honest, this did not work out well. They were heavily vandalized. So we essentially left them in the down locked position. This position here locked up, it didn't work. They were trying to break them open, but that's why we have pilots, right? That's why we try this. So this was not a good pilot, but better that we know this. So if it ever comes up in the future, if people say, why don't you try to have fold up benches? I have data to show that it really wasn't welcomed by our passengers. Something that did work, this was something else we did on the R160s, is we took out the end seating on 100 cars, and we also striped the outside, prettied them up. We did this on 100 cars, and this worked out really, really well. To this day, I haven't heard anything negative, Andrew. I don't know if you do, but this really worked out well.
Haven't heard any, no.
Similarly, on the 42nd Street shuttle, what we did, so for those of you that may not know, the 42nd Street shuttle is either a 3-car or 4-car train. This is the 3-car train, so we took the middle car and we removed all the seats and replaced them with, handrails going along the whole interior, as well as prettying the interior up with striping. It's only a 2-minute ride. The other 2 cars in the train have seats. This went over very well. This is a big deal. So when we buy the R262s in the future, the shuttle cars are going to have something like this too. At least 1 car, maybe 2. This worked out very well. This was a big hit. What else did we do? We have a lot of screens that are on test by a company called Outfront. It's a revenue sharing idea. There are over 1,000 screens to date throughout the system. It's a means of creating a revenue neutral digital information sign that has a near real-time information. And this is still ongoing. COVID slowed down the process, but here's some photos to show you what they look like on different cars. And these have all different advertisements going on, and the advertisements are paying for the installation of the signs, and it's a revenue neutral. We are making money off of it. I can't tell you how much, but this worked out very well. And believe it or not, Andrew, they're not being vandalized. Very, very rare.
Excellent. And the new Mercury system can be used on these, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. These are working out well. We even put it, and this is up here, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that's a 142. This is a 160, but so far so good. We never spoke about a vacuum train, and many people may not know that we have vacuum trains. I know Andrew knows. He knows everything too. Don't let him kid you, folks.
Not that good.
He rides them in the morning.
So we have 3 vacuum trains that were placed. These replaced the old ones. They were placed into service in 2018 and 2019. You'll actually see a photo on the next screen, but this basically, the vacuum train is a 3-car system where the middle car that I'm circling here performs all the vacuuming itself, and the cars to the right or left of it are filled with filters. They're filter assemblies, and the debris is separated by size. This machine is working out so well. Believe it or not, over 6,000 miles of track have been cleaned to date. You can't tell me that you haven't noticed that the tracks have been cleaner over the last year. They clearly have. This machine is so strong, it actually sucks up a live rat. How do we know that? They went to empty it one day, and a couple of rats fell out. it was strong enough to pick up large pieces of debris. And this machine, the difference now is this machine, the older vac trains were self-propelled, and that caused many of the reliability problems with the old design. This vac train needs a locomotive to propel it. What you see here is this is the vac train service, and this goes on at night from roughly 10 p.m. at night till 5 in the morning. It's running around. There's 3 of them. They're running around the whole system. You know, it's. I'm sorry, I was too quick to let you look at it again. Nobody hears about these things because it happens at night. Andrew, I'll offer you and only you a free ride on one of these vac trains, but it's got to be in the middle of the night. We can work it out. You let me know.
Absolutely.
What speed do they go at?
When they're walking, I'm sorry, when they're through the station, 5 miles an hour.
5?
That's the efficient between 5 and 8 miles an hour because it has to pick up. It creates a vortex. Unbelievable the amount of crap it picks up. But these are working out very well.
Thank you.
Pre-pandemic, it was unbelievable how much crap was on the tracks.
Yeah. Just some updates on the R211. So they're currently in, I'm going to show you pictures, don't worry. The R211, the pilot car should have been here this month. The pandemic has destroyed everything, and it has nothing to do solely with Kawasaki, the car builder. Just picture it. Every subcontractor, every company that was providing parts, it's affected everything. So we're looking in this month, sometime in the first quarter, the train will be here. It has a lot of has all of the previous features of our Millennium cars, but it has some extra improvements as well. Those enhanced door lighting, the passenger information signage is going to be more near real time. Open gangway pilot trains are coming, and this is my own little pet. I'm going to have 2 trains in Staten Island coming in with radiant floor heating. I want to remove the heating system that's under the, hold on, Julie, let me call you back. I want to get rid of the radiant heaters that are under the seats. They're not vandalized as much anymore, but still kids stick stuff in there, and every now and then we have a minor fire. These radiant floor heatings are used all over northern Europe. They're great, and they're actually more efficient. So being the engineer that I am, without jumping into the pool, I stick my foot in the water first. Give me 2 trains. Let's see how it works with a couple of rough winters in Staten Island. And if that's the case, I'll then let all the option cars for the 211 have radiant floor heating. I know you're waiting for the pictures. You're waiting for me to move it. So there is the pilot car. That's car number 1. This is in Nebraska. It looks great, doesn't it?
It does.
Nice paint.
Nice looking.
When can we ride it?
It has Governor Cuomo colors on the side, right?
When does the test train arrive?
First quarter, early next year. I just don't have the time yet, Andy. Maybe February. I'm going out. I was supposed to go to Nebraska last week, but because of COVID now, that state is now a hot zone. We had to cancel a trip, so we have to wait. You can see here on the left, here's the, the additional lighting. You can see when the doors open, these strip lights are green. On the other side, they're red. It'll help the passengers out. More digital signage, more open area for wheelchair assisting. It's really great. Here's the flip up. We're going to play with these flip up seats. We may replace these flip up seats with what we call a bumper seat going along the wall with a leaning pad. And here's photos of the flip up seats, the lights again. The passenger emergency intercom is more up to date. I am going away from these yellow stanchion poles. The first couple of trains are going to have them, but I'm going back to stainless steel. I think what we noticed, this is as a result of COVID, right? Stainless steel, from a sanitary standpoint is a better base for any antimicrobial cleansing process. Not that this is, but it could chip. It requires more cleaning. So we're going to go back to stainless steel. I mean, that's what the medical industry uses as well.
John, that view, we've had some feedback from our members, and Edith or Chris, feel free to speak up about the location of poles for wheelchair passengers and those with disabilities
Short
vis-a-vis.
staff and short staff.
And yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
and
some of the polls.
Can we tell from this picture if this is going to work or can we not?
So Edith has her
I
hand
have
raised.
other drawings. This picture can't show it, but I have other drawings, you know, based on the ADA requirements, the radius that you need to make a turn, the car builder had to live to it. This doesn't show it, Andy. I can get you a top view drawing to show that. And even if you look at these handrails, right, this comes much lower than this one. We try to address height issues as well. And maybe this is not a good photo to show it, but yes, we do address all that. When we had when we had at Hudson Yards the mock-up, we took a lot of input from our passengers as well.
Edith, did you want to say something about that?
Yeah. First, I had a question about the light strip. And unfortunately, encountering where a door is locked, so that only one half of the double door opens. Could these be programmed so that it shows red instead of green if it's not working?
So that's funny you mentioned that, Edith, because we're looking at that now.
Thank you.
The only question we're thinking about, it can be done. Do we want that red on all the time? Do we want it on as we approach a station? You know, do you want this car to look, it's something to think about. Do you want it to look like a disco at all times? Or should it come red as we approach?
If the door is not, if the door is physically not working, it's probably good to have it red at all times then, so people will know well in advance of a stop.
Because what happens currently is that the door just doesn't open. And I'm now stuck behind people and I can't turn around and get to another door.
Got it. That's a good point. For example, Long Island Railroad and Metro North do that, where they have a blinking light over the. Okay, so the first year we get this train, the first 8 months, it won't be having passengers. We're going to be running around testing it, and we're also going to get input from our riders, and that's where issues like this, that's a minor software change. I think it's doable. You know, other issues may come up. They may not like these flip-up seats. We may have to rip them out and put those bumper pads up on the wall. So this is what we'll use that first year of running around testing.
Well, you know, John, can we be part of the testing rider groups?
That will be. Once
Can we be part? Can our members, TRC members, be on as part of that testing group?
So Andrew, once the cars come in, we'll work that out. You know, I don't know how that's done, but we can work that out.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
We would also like it to go through moped at this point, but now coming back to the pole issue. There are situations where the pole is far enough into the facing seats so that for me to hold on with my short arms, I am blocking everyone from trying to get to the seat while holding on to the pole. Okay. Secondly, you also have a problem getting off because you have to back out because no one's going to move. Let's be honest here. I've got to back out to the door, turn around, and get out, which is not that easy to do at times. You know, I'm going to say this. During the earlier days of the pandemic, it was really great to ride the train, other than the gap getting bigger. I could get on, get off, turn around, whatever. No, it didn't have to share space. I am being facetious. But that's the problem with the pole placement. The pole placement are not close enough to the open area.
So these pictures don't give it justice, Edith. I'm sorry about that, but there is a lot of room on this right side. You know, it's not fair here. Maybe on this left,
But there are
there's
a
a
lot
lot
of
of
people
room.
standing, and a lot of people standing.
Yeah, and
John,
that's the challenge.
is there still room if that flip-up seat is flipped down with somebody sitting in it?
Not
And that's the
likely.
problem that, right. And Alex brought this up. Alex Alugin brought this up, and we're looking at. Yes, sorry, I always pronounce his name wrong.
Alex E, make it easy.
Yeah, Alex
Right.
E.
And we're looking at a lot of this on the R211, and believe it or not, it's even more challenging on the A division for the R262 because the car is a foot less wide.
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
But we are looking at this, you know. This is a perfect segue into my last.
If you're looking at the bumpers, could you make the seats less deep?
If we're looking at the bumpers, there would be no seats.
I understand that. I'm
taking
that to the next step and saying, well, if we can have these skinny little bumpers, could we have slightly skinnier seats?
So I have to look at what the requirements are.
Okay.
In terms of, I hear what you're saying. I can't answer it offhand. You know, whatever the spec is, but trust me, we cheat. We try to grab every inch we can.
Thank you.
So on this last slide, and you know what kills me, Andrew? I could show you things one-on-one. I can't do it on the screen for
No, I
legal
understand.
reasons, right? The R262, I have all the renderings done. I could show you all the photos of what I want it to look like. It's intended to replace the 62 and 62A fleet that are currently on the 1, 3, and 6 lines.
Right.
The technical specifications done. You know, the next step, we want to issue a request for proposal, but right now, we don't know the budget where we stand. So it's pending budget approval. This is a big question mark, and I'm patiently waiting. It is my hope that we move forward. What people don't realize is we have a limited amount of car builders. Even if we place a small order, we'll secure ourselves in a production line with a car builder. We could order more later, but secure a small order. Let's get that company, whoever that may be. So what's this car gonna have? Obviously everything you've seen plus more, but the very first bullet, the wheelchair areas, working with Alex, they're larger areas. Alex's team has been working with us. We've added X amount of area for the wheelchair. We've added more open areas, more bumper seats. We now in the A cars have assisted listening devices, hearing loops for those that need it, like me. And we're looking at a voice to text function where if an announcement has to be made, whether it's from the command center or from the car itself, it could be converted to text on your phone. So these are ideas that we're working with. And you know, who knows what else is going to come up.
Will you be able to retrofit other cars with this technology? And I'm assuming these will come enabled for CBTC and ultra wideband and or whatever kind of new signaling technology?
Right, whatever modern signaling will be, I'll leave it at that.
Right.
To retrofit older cars.
With the voice to text and hearing loops, etc.
So those items there, it's going to be driven by how many years the cars have left. What's our budget look like? You know, I can't answer that right now. I'm sure it can be. I like to, and I know this is a bad example, but it always works for me. You know, a drug dealer gets his customers by giving something out for free at first. And once you get them hooked, I know that's a terrible example, but I want to get the customers hooked on all these bells and whistles and all these advancements. And once the customers see it, they'll love it and they'll come back and then we could do it elsewhere. See, I ended a bad example with a good story.
Yes. So John, I don't know if you're able to, for legal reasons, can you give us an update on the 179s?
So the 179s, all I could say right now is, you know, Sarah Feinberg and the MTA executive team was concerned of this last incident. So they put together a panel. It's more for the sake of overall safety, not only of the cars, but the process. Is Bombardier doing everything right? Is my team doing everything right? Is our process right in terms of buying cars and accepting cars. From what I understand, I expect those cars to be back in service in a matter of weeks, not months. You know, we're patiently waiting. In the meantime, all the behind the scenes work on whatever updates were needed on software and hardware for those cars are ongoing. I'm having them checked weekly, just to, even though they're not in service, we run around, check the doors, make sure that everything's running around. So this way, when they say, let's go, you know, within a matter of a few days, I could start to put the cars back in service. That's all I could really say on that, Andrew.
Sure. And the panel has been put together and is working.
From what I understand, and they're going to make an announcement of who they are. You know, outside third party, you know, experts.
Yep. Got
this
it.
leads to my last questions, and please be kind with your questions, please.
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead, Ellen.
Thanks. Hi, John. It's Ellen Shannon.
Hi, Ellen.
So I have a wider out question. Because the competition and the manufacturing has become so problematic, has there been an order of magnitude look at what a federal investment maybe to Detroit to start building cars again, what that would take to get some building here and more manufacturing here on the car end of things?
So no, there hasn't, but on the car end of things, many people don't realize. So we have 4 qualified car builders, theoretically, soon to be 3. Alstom, Kawasaki, Bombardier, and CRRC. Alstom and Bombardier most likely will soon be 1.
Yes.
We have a car qualification process. We don't let every Tom, Dick, and Harry just come in and build a car. You have to show us that you're capable and have the wherewithal. So there are other car companies with factories in the United States as well that have not come to us. That means Hyundai Rotem, Stadler in California just built 2 plants, CAF in upstate New York. So there are another 4 or 5 car builders. And even all our qualified car builders all have to have New York presence, as Andrew knows.
Right.
You know,
right.
so
of course.
It's federal government right now, you know, I'm not going to get political with the people that are in charge right now. They won't give us a nickel unless we take it.
This is looking more towards the future and some of the climate change stuff and where you could put economic development money on areas that we have as real weaknesses. And it sure seems like it's a weakness.
And that's what, you know, without getting political, the CRC, that's what they did in Springfield, Mass. They built a factory, and it did help that area in Massachusetts. If they were to get a car contract here or part of a car contract, they would build a factory in New York State. You know, so it's possible. I don't know what the future holds.
That's all right. Thanks.
Sorry,
Nah, that's all right. Thanks.
Andy, Keto had a question, and Shaul and Christopher, and if anyone else does, please raise your hand. Thank you.
So who was next?
Andy.
Andy, go ahead.
Can you hear us?
Not Andy Pollock. Andy Keto, right? The other Andy. Andy who's walking with your mask on. That's you. You have your hand raised, but you have yourself muted. You have muted yourself. I have not muted you. Okay, so when you figure that out, you let me know. Shaul.
Hi, John. I have two questions. The first is about the removal of seats in the R160s. The stated goal of that was to actually increase capacity. Like, first of all, has that actually increased capacity and allowed more passengers to board trains? And second, R160s and new tech cars are able to recycle doors. So if someone holds the door in one car, you don't have to open up in all. And yet it's not enabled. Like, could you possibly talk about that? And that's a way to possibly reduce dwell times.
So the first part of the question, the removal of seats not only seem to have increased capacity, but the overall flow, passenger flow. So that And that helps dwell time too, to get them to get away from the doors. That seemed to clearly help. It's hard to measure, so it's more, I've asked the operations planning team to visually do checks to look. Very hard to gauge, you know, so it's more based on a visual assessment. The door recycling, you're talking about having an individual door recycle.
Yes.
In an individual car, rather than the whole side. Is that what you're saying, Cheryl?
I think so, yeah.
So that's very difficult to do. It's not impossible, but now picture it. Now the conductor needs to control that particular door in that particular car. He has to select the right door instead of just being able to recycle all the doors on one side. I think that alone may add time. You know, because now he's got to figure out what car is that, what door is that, and you know, I think that's going to add more time.
Interesting.
Thank you.
Those are my thoughts.
Okay, we have Christopher, Edith, Jason.
Yeah, I have. Hi, John. It's good to see you over there. John, I have 3 questions. One, do you know when the R79s do return? Do you know if they're going to be switching lines?
They're going to go back to where they came from.
Oh, so they're going back.
They should go back to where they should go back on the AJZ, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Because some people are concerned like there's always a problem with those lines. And with the R211 trains, when they come into the station, are they going to be level to easiness to get into the station when a walker or a wheelchair needs to get on, not in the middle, but maybe also in the front or somewhere? Because there's some stations the elevators is in the front or in the opposite in the back.
Yep.
Yeah. Let me. What I'm trying to say is because you know with the newer trains, yeah, you can get on, but the older trains, it's a different equipment because it's an older equipment. Is the R211 going to have some new what's the new features on those? Is it going to be a little easier access?
As compared to what? So the R211, it'll have a similar type of airbags or suspension control like the R160s or the R179, where it determines the weight of the car, the load weight, and the height of the car is controlled that way. You know, that's what the 160s do. That's what the 179s do. Actually, I have a little secret pilot going on right now to potentially let passengers know which cars are less empty than others.
That's wonderful.
Oh, tell us about that.
Well, it's too early to, I don't believe it's going to work. Personally, I do what I'm told.
Right.
We're New Yorkers, right? I stand in the same spot every day. I stand here because those are the steps I take.
Well, John, if you need testers, I already know the candidates, and I know one of them is Edith. Will agree with and Debbie and other people because either way.
Edith can speak for herself, Chris.
Well, and she has her hand raised.
Well, I like to speak for Edith too. She speaks for me, so it's called teamwork, Andrew.
But you can
Commissioner AA.
Yes.
But Andrew, definitely from the excitement I get from your group here, when these cars come in for testing, we have to get them involved somehow.
Oh, absolutely.
Wonderful.
We'd love to have
Thank you.
a walkthrough and or a trip.
Yeah. Edith and then Jason.
I would just like to point out that cars where there are not seats at the end are particularly loved by mamas with baby carriages and
And people with hand trucks.
Oh God, I wonder what they're doing these days.
Don't start that.
But the bikes, they really love to sit in the seat and block the entire area with the bicycle. So I would really hope this is very positive, but I have certain concerns. Praising them. Thank you.
It's an awful lot of bikers with bikes on the trains lately. If biking is so great, why are you on the train?
That's always the toughest challenge. You know, I can't control, passenger behavior, and that's tough. To design something and expect civilized behavior is tough sometimes.
Absolutely. Any more questions for John? I know he has.
Yes, we have,
to go.
Jason has a question and Andy has his hand raised again. But I wanted to ask about being able to measure capacity, since you raised at your secret test pilot about where people are, similar to what they've done on the Long Island Railroad and what the hackathon is doing for Metro North, what the New York City bus has just announced. Is that now, or will that soon be? Can that be a technology or information that people can look at and use to see, even though we do stand in the same place at all times, now I'll move to a different car based on what's full and what's empty. And I'm sure that many other people would do that now. So I think you're going to see a shift in behavior. Is that something that's possible now and into the future?
It's not possible now. I'm testing several companies on a pilot basis, and it's going to come down to money, time, and what it takes to do. Everybody's I have to separate the snake oil salesman from the real developer and say, okay, you know, you say you could do this, give me one train, show me, and how much is it going to cost, and how long is it going to take? And the only challenge that I see, and you know, of course, here I go, sticking my neck out. A car can be empty for many reasons. A car can be empty if there was a door problem and it was cut out, because it won't be taken out of service. The rest of the train is functional. A car can be empty because there's a homeless guy that decided to go to the bathroom in the corner.
Yep.
A car can be empty because the air conditioning's not working. So be careful what you ask for, right? I mean, that's my concern.
Well, John, unlike the Long Island Railroad, which uses weight as an indicator on their trip time on their Long Island Railroad train app, the buses are using electronic counters, and that might be the better way for subways rather than weight, because.
Right. I looked at that too. You know, from a financial standpoint, the electronic counters now would be very expensive. I'd have to have them on each of the 8 door entrances. 8 more things to maintain, whereas the weight, how accurate do I have the weight? But believe it or not, Andy, I have probably a 10 to 15% level of accuracy with the weight. So I can tell you in 15 to 20% increments how
Yeah,
full the car is.
but a weight reader, as opposed to an electronic counter, wouldn't tell you.
It's electronic.
Right. It wouldn't tell you why people aren't in that car.
Right, but you can crowdsource that, right? I mean, that's, you know, some of the crowdsourcing information could be.
Are they not in there because the AC has failed? Somebody stinks in there? Yeah. You know, who knows?
Now, the R211, I'm talking about the current fleet, right? I'm trying ideas of the current fleet. The R211 is going to have that. The R211 is going to have a lot of information coming off that car. Totally different. You know, and that, to answer your question, that you know, Lisa, that'll have, the R211 will have a lot of these Wi-Fi near real-time pieces of information for you.
Thank you. Do you have time for 2 more questions?
Sure.
Okay. Jason?
Yes. Thank you, John, for that great presentation. I loved it.
Thank you. Jason, I haven't been at the board meetings to see you come up.
I know. Recently, I was in DC, riding the DC Metro on their 7000 series. Every time that their cars are near to approach the station, says in what side of the train the doors are going to open. And I know that this is an issue for tourists who use our subway system here in New York. I'm saying pre-pandemic days. For future models, John, could this be an option to install?
That will be part of the R211.
Good.
The R211 will have that.
I would love to see it. And in terms of
Jason, not only an automatic announcement, but the passenger information signs in the middle of the car will also have arrows pointing for those with disabilities. So it'll also meet the ADA requirements. You'll see lights flashing as well as an automated announcement.
Also, John, I've been seeing some R46s for unknown reason displaying the exterior destination signs to the opposite direction. Like, for instance, if I encounter R46 on the end, going towards Coney Island, the exterior destination sign will say Broadway Express, Astoria de Mars Boulevard, instead of saying Broadway Express, Sea Beach Local, Coney Island.
So this is the challenge. You know, I'm in charge of car equipment in terms of the subway cars, reliability, maintenance, and support. RTO, Rapid Transit Operations, is in control of running the trains, and that group is responsible for resetting the signs and reprogramming it when they change directions. You know, as long as the sign's functioning, and I'm not passing the buck, but I kind of am passing the buck. As long as the car works, my job is done. I need RTO to make sure that their conductors update those signs when you go back to the end of the terminal and go the other way. That's what happens sometimes. Either they think they didn't do it, Jason, or they just forget.
All right, thank you, John. I appreciate it.
And now, Andy, we're going to go back to you if you have your hand raised again.
So yeah, good afternoon. I have one question about the R211. So once they finish testing, do you know what line are they going to start with? Are they going to start with the E train or the F train? The R211 once they're done testing.
I really don't know. You know, their goal is to replace the R46, and I'm sure it'll be based on service needs and how much pressure Andrew puts on, you know, our folks. But
I'm actually going to miss the conversational seating.
because the Jamaica yard already has some of the R160s from the Coney Island yard, so I want to know if we're going to get the R211s, and we could just send the R160 back to Coney Island, some of them.
Yeah. Basically, those decisions are made, you know, based on service needs and sometimes political pressure.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. Tom, can I call you right back? Thanks. Sorry, guys.
Was that
But
it, Andy?
wherever there's an R46, right? Wherever
Yeah,
there's
that
an
was
R46.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jasmine has raised her hand physically. If you have time for one more, and then I think that's it, because you've been very kind and generous with your time.
One more, and that's it.
Hi, thank you for this. I represent Good Neighbors of Park Slope, which is a group of 700 senior citizens. So I have a question about the cars. You know, when you've removed end seating and when you're now going to do the bumper seating, my first question is how many priority seats, not wheelchair spaces, but priority seats would be in each car? Secondly, when it's a priority seat, would you please put the sign above the seat and not behind where someone sits down and then you can't see which one it was? And thirdly, are you reducing the number of priority seats in a car? Because I'm speaking for seniors and those less able to stand. So that's my question. Thank you.
So, first of all, I love your accent.
Thank you.
I would tend to guess where, but I'm going to be wrong, you know.
England.
No, I know England. I wanted to be more specific. I was going to say Birmingham, but I could be wrong. But
Southeast.
Okay, so yes, priority seating signage clearly should be above the seat. It kind of makes no sense to put it on the seat, right? The R211, so picture it this way. The doors are going to be much wider on the R211 than your current cars on that line. Not only are the doors going to be wider, but the niche between the door and the seat is also wider. We have pocket doors, so our doors, when they open, they go into the car body. So as a result of having wider doors and wider niches, what happens? We're going to have a smaller window, and we're going to have less seats overall in the car. The car itself will have more room capacity because of more standing area, but you pay for the larger doors and niches with less seats. Frankly, that's God's honest truth. And it's a tough balance. What do? You know, you have to come to, everybody wants wider doors to faster faster onboarding and offboarding and shorter dwell times, but you got to give up some seats to get it. You know, it's a tough call. That's why we're introducing open gangways too. Let's see if that helps.
The entertainment crowd will love that.
Maybe.
Okay. Thank
I
you
hope
so
I answered
much.
your question.
Thank you so much for this. Really informative. And let us know when we can get a ride and give you some in-person views on the new cars.
Yes.
No problem.
Absolutely.
Andrew,
Thank
anytime
you.
you want to go on that vacuum train, you let me know.
I absolutely will. Thanks. But I don't
Thank
want to
you
pick
folks
up
so
any
much.
rats.
Right. I
Rats
like
have
that
a
you
right
call
to
it the
live
rat
too.
train. Thank you so much, John.
folks, and
Thanks, John. Stay well.
Bye.
Stay well.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Great.
Okay,
Good-
I hope
good choice,
everybody
Andrew.
found that. What's that, Lisa?
Good choice.
Oh yeah, he's wonderful. He's so responsive. He's great. Let's move to old business. Edith, is that you raising a hand?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, your insignia is coming up on the screen, so I don't know why. But
Oh, Matt Shotkin raised his hand.
oh, well, I would take members first. So, anybody have any items of old business before we call on the public?
Christopher.
I got it. Andrew, for going to old business, you said you want to get back to me regarding the 7th Avenue in Brooklyn on the B&Q.
Yes, and I have not gotten an answer for you yet.
Yeah. The only thing is Andrew, when they have a chance, tell them to look at more of the southbound side. It's got, and that's what I'm going to say, because there was, they did have to hold a train in the station because there was a 4-legged thing went from the station into the train.
Oh, okay.
And that's all I'm going to say nicely.
All right. Thanks.
Any other members?
So Matt, I guess.
Matt. All right, Matt.
We've seen lately that the escalator in Grand Central Station is broken again, so I don't really know what to do or how I'm supposed to get them to fix the elevator.
You mean the elevator? Because the brand new elevator, I saw that was broken also.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I also see people
Already?
leaning up against it and defacing it with their compressions.
Yeah. That was my question, Andrew.
Matt, have you reported
Okay,
that?
we'll find out what's the status.
Yeah, because that's
I
brand new.
reported- No, I haven't reported it.
Okay, neither have I.
Thanks.
So next time we should both report it.
And I told her, so yeah, I probably did report it, but that was months ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Lisa, it occurs to me that we distributed a proposed bylaw change to the membership,
Yes, we did. Thank you.
and we have not yet discussed it.
That is correct. Thank you very much. It came to our attention that there was no codified formal mechanism for making a recommendation for our council representative on the MTA board. Now, we don't, New York City Transit Riders Council does not need to, there's no rush. Andrew's going to be here for another, 40 years?
Oh, please.
But we did have a situation because our Long Island Railroad Commuter Council just needed to recommend somebody at long last to the MTA board. So what we did was send to you earlier today some draft bylaw change language for your consideration. In order to change a bylaw, we need to read it and have it approved and recommended for vote at the next regular TRC meeting. So here's what the proposed language is. The New York City Transit Riders Council will recommend to the governor's office a candidate for the council's non-voting seat on the MTA board. In the event of a vacancy, the council shall nominate a candidate at a regular meeting of the NYCTRC and the vote taken at the next regular meeting. So if
anyone, Bill Guild has seen it and didn't see any legality type issues with it, but we're certainly open to anybody's comments.
Sharon has one. Sharon,
I do?
you just raised your hand.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was practicing for later.
Okay.
New business. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. Bert is raising his hand.
And Stuart just made a comment in the chat. Thank you, Stuart.
I'm in favor of the motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
So the protocol would be that you just need to vote to move it today, and then at the next meeting of TRC, which is generally scheduled for August.
No.
Well, generally don't have an in-person meeting in August. So that's a conversation to I guess that's the next conversation to have, is when the next meeting will be held. But that would then be voted on at the next TRC meeting to adopt it as a bylaw.
Likely in September is what you mean.
In September.
We don't have to put a date.
Okay.
I've seen people saying it's fine with them, so.
Okay. Christopher said, what did you have to say, Chris?
Like to make a motion to approve it.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Stuart did that. You can second it. How's that?
Second.
Okay, terrific. Great. Thank you. So we will take this up and put it on the agenda for the next TRC meeting.
Great. New business, anyone have?
Sharon had raised her hand. Oh, there was a couple of questions that remained on old business. Jason wasn't here when you went over the S90 report, if you want to just say that again.
Oh, yes, Jason, I asked the head of buses about your issue with the S90 reverse peak limited. He said there are no plans for restoration of the reverse peak limited, but they have been in talks with Amazon about mitigation measures because they understand it's a problem for people going to and from Amazon at those certain times of day. So it's on their radar, at least.
At least. Thank you for that, Andrew. And
you're welcome.
Another thing that I want to follow up is the signage in Atlantic Barclays in the 4th Avenue line southbound platform.
Yeah.
The signage, it hasn't changed. It still says, if you need an elevator and the elevator is not working, take the D to Bay Parkway instead of taking it to 62nd Street or take the M to New Utrecht.
Yes.
I addressed it with
since
Sarah Meyer personally, and I haven't heard a response back from her.
All right, I will raise the issue. Thank you, Jason.
And also, Andrew, I've been taking often the M15 Select bus service. And believe it or not, the bus gets so overcrowded that I have to often be standing up.
What time of day are we talking about?
We're talking about midday hours. I'll say between 2:30-ish. And I take it from 1st Avenue, 1st Street, all the way to 1st Avenue, 28th Street.
And you see buses in the distance when you get on it, or has there been a huge gap?
A huge gap.
That's why it's really crowded. Let's see what's happening with the M15. There may have been issues. Any particular
also,
day you can tell me?
I'll say it could be any time of the week because I take it to go to my doctor at NYU.
Yeah.
And also, Andrew, I've been noticing that some bus routes during the late night are running less often, including the Q60. That this is a vital route for Queens. And also I've been hearing the BX15, the Q46, and also yep, they're sending emails saying that this route's gonna run less often during the late night hours.
That's weird considering the Q46 serves hospitals, so I'm really shocked to hear that.
Yeah, Andrew, I was gonna butt in saying that you're correct. The Q46 does serve Northwell LIJ, where I am currently
Yes.
employed.
Yes,
Very
important.
This is a huge problem, Andrew, and that's why we need to start to advocate for bringing back 24/7 subway service.
We have been
Because
doing
we're
that.
already in phase 4, and we don't see no progress at all. And my fear is that we're gonna see a meltdown on buses.
Hi, who's calling?
Yeah, I get it, Jason. Thank you. We're worried about this too.
Oh, you're back.
Thank you. Sharon, did you want to say something?
For new business, yes. There's been articles about how they're expecting a big increase in the use of motorcycles, Vespas, electric bicycles, and things like that. Is there a way we could propose a tax on those, either the use of them or the purchase of them, that would help the transit, that would go to transit?
Well, I raised the issue of a gasoline tax because we're in desperate times, and New Yorkers have to look out for themselves. We can't always rely on others who really don't understand our lifestyle and our car-free existence. And since gas fluctuates from day to day and gas station to gas station, people might not even feel it depending on how it was. And we've raised this at our community board, and we forwarded this to our state elected officials. But yesterday, both I and Commissioner Mack raised it at the board level, and we just have to, everything has to be on the table. Pat says, all the terrible things are on the table, but all the fixes have to be on the table as well.
Right. So I just wanted to let you know, following that, Sheila did a first run analysis of looking to see what additional gas tax would raise. But she still has a little more work to look into that.
Yeah. To Sharon's point, there's a really increased use of Revel scooters, some of which are using bike lanes, which they are forbidden to do, and one of which the other day went the wrong way down my block, it's a motor vehicle, and it went the wrong way down the street, which is insane.
You don't need to get a specific license or any training for it. And a reporter for Channel 2 was just killed riding the other day.
Yes. So
Hello, this is Trudy. Can I break in on this conversation?
You just did.
Well, but you could have told me to shut up. Right now, the one place that we are trying to get money is through congestion pricing, by having the federal, I guess it's the EPA but somewhere in the federal government, actually,
yeah, NEIS,
president.
right.
It's FHWA.
Finally ruling on the EIS or whatever.
Exactly.
That should be our big thing. We want to go after anything, because any taxes, we don't have anything to do with raising tax money. Sharon, if you want to, you can always get our elected officials to put in legislation about, for new taxes and for taxes like that, or our representatives up in Albany. You can go to either Rebecca or Rebecca Seawright or Dan Court, and have them put something in the Assembly, or Liz Kruger put something in the State Senate. But if we want to do anything about finances and really a huge hunk of money, maybe we should write another letter to everybody, all of our electeds and everybody else, again, pushing the idea of congestion pricing. Because right now, every time the governor brings it up with the president, he says he doesn't even want to talk about it. And he is the one. So if we get all of our electeds to try to put some pressure as we get closer to November, it certainly couldn't hurt.
So
and that would be my suggestion. suggestion.
The chairman mentioned yesterday at the meeting that they were putting pressure on various elected officials to push this issue as well.
Oh, I know that. No, but I'm saying what Sharon's saying is there something we could do. I'm suggesting it wouldn't hurt for us to do another reminder letter to the board, to our electeds, even if you want to the governor again. I mean, he's on top of it, and
So
to Pat and to everybody else.
We have in fact signed on to a letter in support of that. We are
No,
part of
not
it.
signed on to from all the other groups, just the Transit Riders Council, or if we want to bring in the whole PCAC, but definitely the Transit Riders Council as us, again, doing our own.
Well, actually, it would be from the PCAC because the congestion pricing supports the capital program, which is important to all three councils.
Right. So that I suggest not that we just sign on to something, but there is a letter.
Yet another letter. Yeah.
From us, another letter, and because that it couldn't hurt.
It couldn't hurt. It's like chicken soup.
Like chicken soup, you remember? Okay, exactly.
Yep. Nobody has a problem with us sending our own letter, I assume.
Does anybody have a problem?
No, it's like
It's apple pie.
It's like
and chicken soup.
No, it's not apple pie. It's chicken soup.
Right.
With the
Thank
matzo
you.
ball. With the matzo.
But in terms of what Sharon was suggesting, Deborah's back. Welcome back, Deborah. Sharon is talking about the various new things that everybody is utilizing so they don't have to get on the mass transit system. And in order for us to get much needed revenue, should we suggest a tax on e-bikes, scooters, revel use, and of course, I'm still pushing for a gasoline tax because I think it's the right thing for us. We have to start helping ourselves.
That's what we're doing the analysis.
If I may, realistically, no, I'm just saying that realistically, we should go where we know that we have a shot at getting money right now. To propose new taxes
I know it's
right
an election
now,
year and it's not easy.
Exactly. It just it doesn't make it's something to consider, but not. I would suggest not right now.
So one of the things that we've done, one of the things that we're continuing to do is, as you will recall, we put together a funding tool to look at all different possible inputs into a capital program, funding for a capital program. We're updating that for the operating funding. And that, I think one of the things that will show is that no matter how much is raised from other sources, nothing is going to replace federal funds. And that's what the chair said yesterday. And that's where the big push is going to be. Congestion pricing would definitely help because that would mean that operating money wouldn't have to come out of capital. So the capital program could continue.
Exactly.
But
and keep
the
in
only
mind
thing that's going to help is the extra money.
Exactly.
And when the board takes up the issue of the financial plan and does their vote in December, the election will already have taken place. So we will then be free to do various things. But yes, right now we should get a letter out about a decision on this. New York State has decided congestion pricing is the law of the land here, and nobody else should stop us from proceeding with this.
Exactly.
Okay.
I'd be if somebody would draft a letter, and if you want to just send it to me quickly, because I've been working on this from various angles, and I'd be happy to just make sure that the wording is what they need.
It's the quickly is going to be what the little stumbling block is right now. But we'll get something together as fast as we can. But it's not gonna be this week.
Well, next week is still fine.
Well, it's not going to be early next week. So
Well,
next week is still fine.
I just want to make everybody's expectations.
Because this is going on in Washington right now.
Yep, absolutely.
And
we're very engaged in it.
The governor was down there yesterday to talk to the president about not sending federal troops into New York like they've done in Portland and other places. And he got the president to agree on that. And of course, he brought up congestion pricing again. So right now would be the best time for us to get something in writing as soon as possible.
Absolutely.
Just a suggestion.
No, we will. We just are we're
Okay.
very tightly stretched right now.
Thank you all.
And we have Edith had her hand raised, and then Andy, and then Matt. Edith, you're muted.
We're past 2 o'clock.
Yeah, we've got to wrap up. Edith,
Okay.
are you there?
Andy had one. Andy had a question that he's been trying to ask. So go ahead, Andy.
So yeah, speaking about old business, recently I still be seeing machines being broken at Jamaica Center, and I have bring this this up to the board so many times, and also my fellow colleagues, and nothing has been done. Do you know what's going on? Like the broken machines, the security.
Which machines are we talking about?
The MetroCard machines at Jamaica Center.
At Jamaica Center?
Yeah. It's still an ongoing problem. It hasn't been solved by the police. Nothing.
Wow, and they've got a lot of cameras there. I'm shocked. I will raise it again. How many are out at a given time?
When they're out, sometimes they could be up to like 10 people. 10 people.
But they're not all out at once, right? Some are still working.
Yes, some are like in that corner, some are by the fare gates, and some by the turnstiles. And there's others ones at the second entrance at Jamaica Center, the one that is less used often. It's like 2 of them I saw the last time.
I will raise it again, Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So Matt Shotkin has a question, and we are at 2:05.
I have 2 minutes left on my phone.
Okay. Matt, you want to have the last question, and then?
Yeah, sure. Maybe this is a better question for Trudy, but what's happening with the M15? I haven't heard her complain today.
Thanks, Matt.
I don't have anything to complain about. The M15 has been running absolutely fine, and the drivers are overly polite and wonderful.
Wow.
I had one yesterday who was just marvelous as far as, so I haven't complained about that ever since. In this situation, that is the least thing to complain about. We've got a lot of things going on, and unless we get the money to run all of these things, there'll be nothing to complain about because everything will just kind of fade away. So let's just focus on getting money out of Washington.
Yeah, let's.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you.
we will be in touch, and stay safe. Thank you for today.
Yes, thank you very much.
8830.
Happy
8830.
September 10th.
What, August meeting?
We'll be in touch.
We'll get to you with that.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.